And when you're an empty vessel with no real principles and no real beliefs in life, but you have been convinced to go through with these rituals in the streets every night, these crazy Lord of the Flies rituals in the streets every night, you actually end up worshiping things you didn't even know that you worshiped.
Hey friends, I'm glad to have my channel back. More on that in a second. Hey, before we begin this interview, just a quick word from this interview's sponsor. The consumer credit reporting agency, Experian, has just experienced a recent data breach that revealed the information of 24 million individuals and 800,000 businesses, exposing them to future phishing attempts. The best way to protect yourself from being a victim online to attacks like this is to use a VPN. And the VPN I use is Virtual Shield. Virtual Shield has a strict no-log policy, and it was built from the ground up specifically for privacy protection. Now, due to the recent pandemic and economic troubles, Virtual Shield is offering its services at 50% off to help customers in need to protect themselves, as well as a free 30-day trial. I'm going to leave the link to this very special offer right below this interview. Click on it, check it out, and experience for yourself why thousands of people choose Virtual Shield as their VPN. And welcome back, friends. Thank you so very much for tuning in. I have some good news to share. Well, the bad news is I just got another YouTube strike the other day for no good reason. In fact, their reason was impersonation. For an interview I did with Spiro Skouras, and they charged me with impersonation. Figure that out. So I appealed it. And the good news is, for the first time in my history with YouTube, I won the appeal. They've reinstated my channel, so you're watching this on the main channel instead of the backup channel. And they age-restricted that conversation with Spiro. Boy, my feeling is they're going to try to rig this election any way they can. I have more news to share in a second, but first let me introduce my guests, my longtime friend Frank from the Quite Frankly podcast and YouTube channel. How are you, Frank?
I'm doing great, Sean. It's great to be on with you again.
Yeah, thanks for activating video and showing us your pretty mug. I joked with you that the audience would be sad if they didn't get to see it. Also, we get to see a sneak peek at your bat cave, your lair.
This is where I have been. This is where my new professional life is working out of now, because the baby took my original office, and that's become a nursery. So here we have it, and she arrives in 2 weeks. So it's ready. I'm ready to go.
Congrats, buddy. Your
Thank
life
you.
is about to get very dynamicer.
More.
Even
more. Bring it on.
Start losing sleep.
And our other guest is Jim. He's known as Earthman. Now, Jim reached out to me. I guess I could say he's sort of a SGT report supporter, and he reached out to me via email, explained to me that he's been in radio for years and years and years, really wanted to contribute, and I invited him on. I thought, well, why not bring you on, Jim, and we'll do a little round table with my friend Frank, who's got the gift of gab. So introducing Jim Earthman. How are you, Jim?
Oh, man, it's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate you doing this.
Hey, it's my pleasure. And look, we have no agenda today, guys. I just asked each of these gentlemen to bring some current news of the day to the table to discuss. I've jotted down a couple items myself. I also want to let you guys know that because I got that strike at YouTube, I went ahead and launched sgtreport.tv. That is going to be the answer to YouTube censorship if and when they finally terminate my channels altogether. And we know from Mel Fabregas over at Veritas via the whistleblower from Google that he brought on that is Google and YouTube's plan. Right before the election, they're going to do another purge. If my channel goes down, guys, please subscribe to sgtreport.tv. And in the meantime, I will be putting up 1 or 2 exclusive videos there each week, videos you can't find anywhere else. Well, also on Patreon, and that's a locked account on Patreon, so you have to be a Patreon to see them. So, with all of that out of the way, Frank, thank you so much for joining us. Do you have anything on your radar? I'll let you begin, because I've already babbled on quite a bit here.
Well, I mean, I think you've expressed a couple of things that go and speak to the bigger picture. Everything that we're living through right now, we're walking into. That's just what I'm thinking about here. I have friends of mine who have brought to my attention that in places like California, like San Diego, there's been an elimination of 85% of all the polling stations out there to try to push people to mailing in votes. We know that in places like Pennsylvania, where Trump won, they have pushed back the counting of votes and the submission of votes by 3 days after Election Day. the certification of the Electoral College votes are going to be really interesting. Who's going to miss the deadline? Whose votes are going to be eliminated? Is that going to help or hurt Trump? Is this all follow the bouncing ball kind of stuff with the presidential election, whereas there's going to be more state and U.S. House of Representatives and U.S. Senate elections that are going to be disrupted. Therefore, even if Trump is reelected, there's actually going to be a chance to remove him via impeachment the second time around. I don't know. It's all I'm thinking about, because nothing we're watching is organic. I know more inside in my gut, even more so than 2016, Trump has all the momentum, and that there is only one exodus that's going on electorally around the country, and that is people are leaving the left. They're not necessarily jumping into the Republican Party and rah-rah GOP, but they're understanding what is coming out of the Democrat Party. There's only one direction that exodus is going in. So I don't believe anything that is giving Joe Biden an edge anywhere. But at the same time, who's really in control? I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence.
Let me do a screen share, and Jim, you can jump in too and comment on this. But I thought it was really fascinating that on the night of the Democrat convention, that shit show, because it was a disaster, right? By any account, it was an absolute disaster. But on that night, Democrats in large volumes were calling into C-SPAN and explaining why they were walking away from the Democrat Party and voting for Trump, because they are so fed up with the Antifa looting and rioting and the BLM looting and the rioting and the crooked mainstream media and the crooked Democrats covering for BLM and Antifa and refusing to condemn their violence. People are fed up. So I think all of that is backfiring on these people. And then I don't know if you guys saw this, but I thought it was very amusing, hilarious. No crowds, no excitement, just hecklers.
Hey, Joe! You finally got out of the basement! Hey, Joe, who paid for those pizzas? Thank you very much for bringing Hey, Joe, who paid? Somebody gave us steak! That's right, Joe!
Don't jump! Don't jump! Don't
You're
jump!
cracking now, Joe!
Thank you, sir.
You're cracking now! You're full crack! Now you're full crack!
No.
I never saw that.
Frank, I love it that you're laughing, because I laugh too. I mean, this is the best they have. This is their candidate. This is the front runner. This is the guy that's leading in the polls from coast to coast. I mean, are you kidding me? How can they sell that narrative to the American people? It's such clearly a lie.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think if we could get voter ID and prove that you're a citizen, I think that would be the easiest way to make this election fraudulent. And I'm surprised that isn't talked more about these days.
Well, the Democrats don't want honest votes, right?
Well, I know that, but
So that's the only way they can win this thing is by
vote
stealing.
on election day, and the votes have to be tallied within by a few days, 3 days after the election. So they want to stretch it out. They want to create a lot of anxiety, and I think if we could just prove that you're a citizen and go to the actual voting poll, that would make me feel a lot better. The absentee ballot is fine, but the mail-in is full of fraud.
Yeah. Well, I saw a funny meme or a tweet. Somebody wrote, "I've never done the mail-in ballot thing before. Am I supposed to mail in all 7 of these?" Thought that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah. Well, you saw the New York Post article that just came out 2 days ago? It says I am a vote confessions of a voter fraud. And he pretty much, this guy who is, working under anonymity with the New York Post, although they say they have completely confirmed everything he says about his past associations, working with the Democrat Party. He's another Bernie supporter. But he's coming out to try to warn everybody about what's going on. And he was primarily working out of the state of New Jersey. And he was pretty much telling that probably is a major reason why the state is blue, because the smaller the election, the easier it is to flip it. And he went in depth into how easy it is to screw with these mail-in ballots. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. You have to read it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I'll check that out. I think everybody's waking up to the fact that these Democrats are actually demonic. I've been tweeting about the fact that the D in Democrat actually stands for demonic. Did you guys take note of the Democrat National Committee, or the Democrat logo.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the 5-star.
Essentially death to America. I mean, honestly, that is the interpretation for those with eyes to see. I mean, that's definitely a pentagram or a Baphomet head.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In my view, look, I mean, they stand for abortion on demand and open borders. I mean, who would vote for that? They also stand for Antifa and BLM, which I think is a good segue back to this. Let's listen to President Trump as he describes who's actually controlling Biden.
The people of this country will not stand for it. If you say calm things down, yeah, calm things down, because they will have taken over. Take a look at what's going on. And Biden, well, Biden is, I don't even like to mention Biden because he's not controlling anything.
Who do you think is pulling Biden's strings? Is it former Obama
People
officials?
that you've never heard of. People that are in the dark shadows. People that...
What does that mean? That sounds like conspiracy theory.
I'll pause that. I love it that she says, sounds like a conspiracy theory. No, that's fact, Laura Ingraham. That's fact. This guy is being puppeteered by people in the shadows in dark rooms. Absolutely, George Soros.
What is the story of the world if not conspiracy? Humans conspire all the time. Children conspire with each other in sandboxes. I mean, this is ridiculous. You look at this guy who can't put two words together. You have other people out there, avowed violent communists like Angela Davis, that says that Joe Biden is a good guy to get behind because he's the one that we could push and we can steer the easiest. These are, and Sean, I love that you bring it on up there that it's a demonic group of people. If you look at things like the abortion, you look at things like open borders, you look at things like that, everything is Cloward Piven from their welfare models of everything on down. It really is a party of it's a party of sacrifice. They're sacrificing everything that once was for something that they want to bring on in. You're not making a better country by standing by what they're doing. You destroy the country and bring something else in by standing by what they want to bring to the fore. That's just really it. It's a party of sacrifice.
We're trying to sacrifice the individual. And if we don't have our individuality and then want to force us into groupthink, that's not good.
Yeah.
I think also that if a cure came out, this whole fear about the virus would just disappear. People would realize that if they did get sick, they're not going to die. And I've seen numerous reports where there's numerous ways you can get over this with hydroxychloroquine, with this budesonide. There is also augmentin that can be used with zinc that can help people get over this. So I was really hoping that Trump by now would have actually come out and said, well, the hydroxychloroquine kept me from getting anything. I wonder what made Boris Johnson recover so quick over 2 weeks. If he had just come out and get off of this vaccination concept that everybody's trying to bring towards us, because I think that's where it's going. Not only the November election, I think this is forced vaccinations, and they want to, get us chipped, and they want to put this RNA vaccine in us. That's actually going to change our DNA. It's the first time they've done this type of vaccine.
Well, Jim, listen to this, actually. I want to circle back and show you guys one other thing, but since you brought it up, this was my other news item I wanted to share today. Massachusetts and Virginia governors and legislatures now mandating vaccinations, right? Mandatory vaccinations coming to Massachusetts and Virginia. Who's the governor of Virginia? Ralph Northam, right? That guy's a clown. But get this. Who's the governor of Massachusetts? Well, it happens to be a Republican. His name is Charlie Baker, but he was the CEO of Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare for a decade. So close ties, I would imagine, to Big Pharma. Let me circle back. I wanted to show you guys this.
Are you guys going to get the vaccination?
Oh, hell no. Well,
No.
And Frank, you've got a big road ahead of you because
Your kid.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're going to have vaccinations pushed down your throat by your physician. Are they mandatory in New York? I think they might be.
There was the only thing that we could not get around in New York was a vitamin K shot, which is why we're going to Connecticut. So as far as the hospitals go, New York and Connecticut aren't really that much different, but Connecticut does provide a lot more for does provide a lot more leeway for parents. But I don't think we have to worry about too much about that. And to be honest, right now, everybody's so isolated, and everything in New York that is mandated by law is really just to get you into schools that my daughter's not going to them. I mean, she's not going to any preschools, not going to any. I'm going to be homeschooling over here. At this point, everybody that never thought that they'd ever give homeschooling a thought is doing that, because not only are they either A, have completely taken the blue pill and they're afraid of the virus, or B, they're starting to red pill a little bit more and just realize I'm not sending my child to a concentration camp. Or the other thing there is that they have already decided to do remote learning or homeschooling or whatever it is, and the curriculum that is showing up at their front door from what is being pushed around in these schools is so horrifying that they realize for the first time, they see what their children are learning, that you have all of these teachers out there that are that are expressing their discontent on the internet, that they don't want parents to see what they're discussing with their children, as if there's some kind of doctor-patient confidentiality with what's being taught in school. So I think about the education path that my daughter is going to be on in the years to come, and I say, well, listen, this is really, oh, at least in New York, the whole vaccination schedule is based on whether or not you're going to be in any schools, public or private. And it's really not on the agenda for her if we are even in New York at that point. But I know what you're bringing up over here, Virginia, places like Massachusetts. They're trying to get citizens just across the board to be mandated. And that's regardless of whether or not they're seeking public or private education. But yeah, it's on our radar, and we have it in mind what's going to be pushed our way for sure.
Well, these Marxist teachers, you brought this up, and I wanted to comment on it, and I don't remember where it was, but I do remember reading an article about teachers asking parents to sign agreements to not listen in on these Zoom calls, right, these teaching lessons, because the teachers are being revealed for the Marxists they are, and they're teaching such
They're
garbage.
not teaching. They're grooming.
They don't want parents to even know, and so it's waking up a lot of people.
Yeah, that's the best part about it. They're realizing that the teachers are corrupt, that they have another agenda to poison our kids' minds.
Let me show you this. This is the other thing waking people up. Now, I don't know who owns this domain, so this could just be a great joke. But if you click on this, antifa.com, where does it take you?
Oh, the DNC.
It takes you to Joe Biden. Now, I thought, okay, maybe the guy who sent me that's just a fun little trick he pulled. So then I went up to Google and I typed in antifa.com. It does actually take you to joebiden.com. I'm not sure who owns the domain. It's a pretty good prank in my view, but it's very accurate. The other thing that I think is interesting, Frank, I think you'll enjoy this, is Joe Biden's YouTube channel has 166,000 subscribers.
Wow, massive.
So much energy, so much energy behind this campaign.
Look at those views. Look at those video views too. Wow, those are viral.
Yeah. 5,000 views, 6,000 views. Yeah, nobody wants the crap these people are selling. I mean, nobody. I literally don't know how CNN can carry this guy's water at this point and say with a straight face that he's still the front runner. It's impossible. It's quite literally impossible for him to be the front runner. Well, some people believe it. Even some recent guests I've had. Doug Casey thinks that Biden's going to win.
Well, Antifa, in my opinion, does not stand for anti-fascist because they are fascists. It's really anti-First Amendment. They don't want us to talk. And the COVID-19, I just realized this. We know that COVID stands for a certificate of vaccination ID, but the 19 doesn't relate to last year. It relates to AI. A is the first letter and 9 is the I.
I've seen a lot of that.
That means it's tied in with 5G. So COVID AI is actually what we're being subjected to here in our subconscious. And there's a lot of reports that are coming out right now, especially that one I was telling you about from the French Reserve Army reservists, that 5G affects the virus and also this bacterium in your gut called Prevotella.
Well, I don't know what's affecting the bacteria in Joe Biden's gut or the guts of CNN, but I'll tell you one thing. Even just going back to what Sean just said just a moment ago, the people who think that Joe Biden are going to win, I don't understand them at all. Now, as far as Joe Biden being a candidate that strikes a chord with most Americans, and he's going to garner a majority of the votes that are going to flip, that's going to flip the electoral map blue, and that's what's going to happen. That does not exist. I wouldn't put anything. I wouldn't, dismiss anybody who takes an assessment of what is going on around the world, all the things together, COVID, everything that's being used right now, and they assess all of that. They look at the state of the media, the state of these fake polling, the state of this push for the USPS to magically become the driver through which we are able to execute all of our general elections for a nation of 330 million people in just a couple of months, retool them completely. Anybody that takes an assessment of all of that and says, there's a good chance Joe Biden becomes the president, not because of there's an overwhelming demand for Joe Biden, but because the stage is set for unbelievable combinations of criminality right now. There's so many ways you could combine the factors at play right now to turn the world into whatever you want, to turn the results of what we're walking into in the next 60 days into however you want it. Now, the only thing that makes me feel a little bit better is that the questions if the president didn't have the answers to the questions that keep me up at night sometimes, I don't think he'd be walking around this calm. So maybe he knows something, and maybe he rightfully is not telling anybody, because for anybody to know in public would mean that the Democrats certainly know. And I don't know, maybe that's something that we can rest assured in, because if he still had, I don't see how he could be so calm if he didn't have the answers for the questions I have. So who knows?
I want to amplify what you just said. The stage is set for unimaginable evil if these people get control of the executive branch. God forbid they take control of the Senate. They'll stack the Supreme Court. Their agenda is pure evil. Did you see the exchange between Kamala Harris and Stephen Colbert, where she was beaming about these riots, and she said, they're not going to stop. I've got a message. This is a movement. They're not going to stop, and they shouldn't stop. Joe Biden, one of his campaign promises is, if he becomes president, he's going to mandate masks from coast to coast. He wouldn't be sworn in until January. They want this nightmare to continue forever. And here's one other...
It's not going away.
This is one other item I had on my agenda I wanted to show you guys, because how far do they think they can push people before people violently revolt? All right, consider what demonic Democrats just did in California. Now, a 19-year-old could have sex with a 9-year-old, and it wouldn't be a sex offense. A 23-year-old could victimize a 13-year-old, and it would not be a sex offense. Do Democrats not remember what happened to Nikolai Ceausescu, is what I tweeted last night? SB 145 was just passed in California, allowing registered sex offenders to no longer be considered a sex offender if their offense was within 10 years of the age of a minor. So these people clearly serve a satanic agenda, which is why I continue to tweet this, okay? It's not hyperbole. What we're talking about here, guys, is an existential threat, not only to our country and the republic, but to people, to humanity. I think these people, and look, I've said it a million times, Jim and Frank, if you look at the behavior of some of these BLM people and the Antifa people, they are firmly in the grasp, in the grip of an antichrist spirit.
Oh, yeah.
No question.
So for those who say voting doesn't matter and both sides are controlled by the same puppeteers, you know, in the unseen realm, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, either we're going to be ruled by Satanists or we're not.
Well, if we could just stop this mainstream media from throwing out these lies, I'm really sort of upset that Trump hasn't put the finger on that. I firmly believe it's so far gone that you have to send the military in there and occupy the top offices of these social media giants and these news organizations and start putting out the truth, because the poor sheeple that have bought into their lies upon lies through these 3 years, they're the ones that are going to vote for Biden just because of their extreme hate for Trump. and it's all based on a fallacy. Why can't we just go after the media that has poisoned more than half of our country?
Frank, I think you had something to say. Feel free to jump in. For those who don't know about Nicolae Ceausescu and his wife, things finally got bad enough in Romania that the dictator and his wife were arrested and they were executed within hours of their arrest. I mean, there is a point where people reach their tipping point. There comes a time where people reach their tipping point, and they will not live under total tyranny like the Democrats would love us to live.
Yeah. There was a guy, I was watching it recently. His name is Abe Hamilton. Abe Hamilton III of the Hamilton Corner. He's a very religious guy, and he it was sent my way, and what he was breaking down was unbelievable. And the title of the video was Black Lives Matter practicing a form of witchcraft. I put it on the Interesting Shite playlist on my channel. I can send it to you as well, Sean, because I think that it would be amazing. He uses actual clips. Now, we all heard the clips of BLM founders talking about we're trained Marxists. But there's also plenty of evidence out there of people talking about their actual communing with the spirit world, being driven and being inspired and channeling any kind of a presence from the other side, whether they be dead or just, anything that they can bring on over from the astral plane. I don't know. But there is something very, very religious about this. While they keep, of course, all the people on the street, all the people elsewhere, they keep them dead inside. They keep them very faithless, godless, and they take tradition and they hollow them out. And I believe that the reason why they do that is, number one, it makes them very, very controllable, and not only controllable in an everyday life sense over here on Earth, but when you have that little tethering you to reality and that little really enriching your soul and any kind of exercise for the soul there, it makes you an empty vessel for so many other things. And when you're an empty vessel with no real principles and no real beliefs in life, but you have been convinced to go through with these rituals in the streets every night, these crazy Lord of the Flies rituals in the streets every night, you actually end up worshiping things you didn't even know that you worshiped. I mean, I really do believe that so many people have been backhandedly invited into participating in a nationwide black mass. I think that's what we're watching in many ways. And I always like thinking about this stuff because it made me feel, like, oh, maybe it's kind of spooky to think about this. Maybe there's more than what the eye sees, but it's more and more. I believe that this is really what drives everything, not just a facet of it that we barely see. I think it's such a bigger facet than we think.
Frank, I said the same thing in a tweet just the other day. I tweeted that the spiritual war is now manifesting it in the real world through Antifa and BLM. I firmly believe that what you're saying is absolutely accurate. And Jim, I know you wanted to say something. Sorry for interrupting, but hold on. Show you one other thing here. Flamethrower packing Antifa entered fetal position and began crying after unsuccessful escape from cops. I mean, this is what we're up against. We're up against man-children who think that they have power and strength and courage because they run around in the night dressed up in black with masks on. These people are cowards, and many of them are firmly in the grip of an Antichrist spirit. I think you're absolutely right, Frank. I feel like one of you guys had a comment, and I might have interrupted.
It was Jim.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the heck it was. My concern is about the virus and the fact that we're headed towards a forced vaccinations. And we can sit on the sidelines and say, well, yeah, I'm not going to get the vaccination. But it's going to get to a point, if we can't stop it, to where I'm not going to be able to shop, fly, trade, buy, or sell unless I can prove I've got this darn vaccination. And I think that's this whole agenda. The virus is a big distraction to do the mass surveillance with the 6-foot distancing, so that the software now coming out of the 5G towers and even the street lights can detect you. If you're in a group, the facial recognition doesn't work. So I'm concerned that this viral thing and the vaccine they have planned is something we have to be concerned about, I think, more than anything else at the moment.
Well, let me allay your fears just a little bit, Jim. I'm really passionate about this. I think this is the tipping point. Now, California did pass SB 277 mandatory vaccines, and there wasn't a revolution, which surprised me to some extent. However, any national, quote-unquote, mandate of forced vaccination will be met by patriots, will be revolted against by patriots. And look, we're up against a paper tiger. Okay, they use fear. Fear is their weapon. But what is the best combatant of fear? Education, knowledge, right? We know that their fear-mongering over this phony virus is nothing more than fear-mongering, and nobody I know is going to stand in line for the Bill Gates vaccine. I really think that we're reaching a tipping point, just like we did a decade ago with bovine growth hormone in the milk, Monsanto's BGH. It's not in the milk anymore. So I think we're rapidly hitting that tipping point where these big pharma tyrannical lies are not only not believed, they are not going to be complied with. Any mandate, any order for a vaccination, a mandatory vaccine, that absolutely is the line in the sand, in my view, for any sovereign free people. Frank, your view on that, Frank?
Yeah, there's going to be a time coming very soon where Americans are going to have to do what they're going to have to do. I mean, that's just it. There's no negotiating with a force like this that cannot even be relegated to the old trope of a very handsy, touchy-feely, intrusive domestic government. This is a global idea. When we talk about the demonically possessed people that are inside of the major American political parties, with the Queen Spider being in the Democrat Party right now, that is merely just talking about the American front in a global war. We are fighting on the American front in a global war. Now, our battlefront is the most important, I believe, just because if American sovereignty is completely erased, economically and otherwise, then there really is nothing holding the world together. But other than that, I look at something, if you want to pan out from there, last night on my show, I was talking about the global reset, that everybody has been coining that phrase from Prince Charles to the Pope on down. If you really look at what this is, the virus and everything else, it's just Agenda 2030 over again, over and over again. Everybody's talking about how right now, because of the virus, you know, it's so funny how in the early goings of the virus, they said that, well, all of the laboratory research has shown that it seems someone has inserted this HIV protein spike into the virus to make it latch onto things a little bit easier and deliver the sickness into a host a little bit easier. And I think about this, if you go out in the macro of that, you say, okay, well, they're using the virus as the protein spike for Agenda 2030, because they're all saying we have a chance right now to remake within the next 30 years, which of course brings us to the magic year of 2050 that everybody always talks about, 2050, the year that it all can be accomplished, the 2030 goals. But they say we have a chance right now to remake ourselves economically, to remake ourselves on a level of equality for people, redistribution of wealth. We know what the Pope is doing with all of his synods and trying to create the impetus and the foundation for a one world pluralistic faith movement. Everything is happening right now, and they're using the virus as a way to deliver this idea of reset. And what's behind the reset? It's just UN Agenda 2030. And they've been
totalitarian global takeover.
Yeah, they've been prepping it for a long time. I remember covering things coming out of Bill Gates's camp 10 years ago. 10 years ago, they were prepping us with the idea that one day a disease X is coming and we need to be prepared. Well, disease X is here. It's
right. they're also trying to force us into a global cryptocurrency, that vaccine with the nanochips, and ultimately in your skin electronic chip.
Yep.
So
yeah, the
and
digitization of money, that's definitely part of it too. Yeah.
right. So if we don't
Davos.
stand up here, this is probably our last chance.
That's exactly what Catherine Austin Fitts and Dr. Sherry Tenpenny said in my interview with them. And guys, that's an exclusive. You can only find it at sgtreport.tv and if you're a Patreon. And the reason I did that is because YouTube is, I think, at some point going to terminate our channels. We all need to have our own pirate ships. So I finally have mine, sgtreport.tv. But the other reason is that entire conversation revolved around exactly what you guys just mentioned. The chipping, the COVID vaccine, all of it. None of it is allowed on YouTube, according to Susan Wojcicki, because a lot of what we discuss does run counter to World Health Organization talking points. Frank, you hit on something really important, and the same thing came up in my interview with Fitz and Tenpenny. So we're going to end on this soundbite. I played it in that interview. I'll play it now. Frank, you mentioned Evil. Have you been watching the show Yellowstone?
No, I haven't.
I think you'd really enjoy it. It's a really good show. It's on Paramount Network, starring Kevin Costner. And here's Kevin Costner discussing Evil with his son.
You can't reason with evil, son. Evil wants what it wants. It won't stop until it's won or you kill it.
Anyway, evil wants what it wants, and it won't stop until you kill it.
That's true.
No
You do
truer
have to
words
kill
have
it.
ever been spoken.
I'll leave you with one in that same vein too. It's from Ayn Rand, and Ayn Rand said, "Reason can be fought with reason. How are you going to fight the unreasonable? The trouble with you, my dear, and with most people, is that you don't have sufficient respect for the senseless. The senseless is the major factor in our lives. You have no chance if it is your enemy." And that's, I think, a lot of people in America right now are realizing right now that this election is very symbolic in the sense that I believe that most people, especially those who are starting to see things differently for the first time ever, perhaps, are seeing this election as a way to maybe do the last thing that they can do in this fight completely through a polite means. All polite options are leaving. That whole rallying cry, the silent majority, is nonsense. I can't stand it. It's the most useless majority to be a part of, especially when you are fighting the senseless. So we'll see. We're knocking on the door, and we're all going to have to walk through together.
Yeah, I think you
And
hit the nail on the head.
get ready for the big second wave, right?
Well, honestly, I think Frank hit the nail on the head, because we are actually engaged in a war with people who have lost their sense. I mean, look,
yes, the sheep
we're in a
are
war
gonna
with
drag us
people
into
that are
this.
literally screaming about ending the republic. They're burning flags. They're burning Bibles. They're burning copies of the Constitution. They want to defund the police. Look, I don't think it's overstating it one bit. I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I repeatedly say these people are firmly in the grip of an antichrist spirit. They truly are, because what does Jesus Christ represent? Truth and life and forgiveness, eternal life. These people really stand opposed to all of it. They stand opposed to our freedoms. They stand opposed to Christian decency and values. They're truly in the grip of an antichrist spirit, and anybody who casts a ballot for a Democrat in November is, in my view, voting for more of that, more of the Antichrist spirit taking over our country. Frank, I want to tell you how much I appreciate you, your voice. I cannot believe that you do a show every single night for how many hours? 2 hours?
2.
Unbelievable. How do you even prep for that every single day? How long does it take to prep?
I don't. I sometimes, Sean, I could be done. I'll sit down and I'll really start writing around 9 a.m. and I'll just putz around before then, and I'll just get myself right. And then sometimes I can have the whole show written by 2 p.m. and then everything else is just ancillary work and whatever. There are other days that I'll sit down at 9 and I am writing until 5:15 And that's 15 minutes before I leave the house to go to the studio to do the show and prep for the show at 7. And then there's sometimes I get to the studio at 5:30, 6 o'clock. I sit down there, and within an hour, I rewrite the entire show or huge segments of the show because I don't like the way that they read or something like that. It's constant.
But you say you write it, and I've watched your show. You don't read
It's
it.
not
You're not using a
scripted.
teleprompter, so
No.
you're reading bullet points? What are you doing?
No, there's sometimes there's copy points, but mostly it's just how does the conversation flow, and with all the material that's on out there, what order do you put it in? What makes a good segment? What creates a good question to pose to the audience for call-ins? Where how does this entire thing flow? And then once again, outside of that, I don't like to be a news show, so where can I dip from in history, in literature, in culture, movies, music? Where can I take a nice stanza of a poem somewhere, or just some lyrics, and turn it into something else and tell a little history, Tin Pan Alley or something else? Where can we go else with this that you get a little bit more of an insight of us as a species and all the great things that we've done over the millennia? Because it's all too cold and too dark, like Kevin Costner was saying, just to leave it at the headlines and all of the very Machiavellian motivations behind everybody's moves in the media and all that. There's got to be something more, Sean. And that's why some of my favorite episodes of yours is when you talk to Hollow Earth. You talk Hollow Earth, and you talk about the esoteric and the occult and all that stuff. I love it. I want to get lost in that sometimes, and because it makes you wonder, what if? And then the more you wonder, the more it validates itself, because you realize that we're swimming in the shallow end of the pool so often, and it'd be awesome just to get dragged in that undertow, just at least for a little bit. You don't want to get drowned, because you can go too far on that too, but that's it's a big process.
Well, I could not more highly recommend your show. And, if it doesn't work out for you, Frank, obviously it has, and it will continue to. But if it doesn't, you'd make a great producer for somebody like Tucker Carlson. I mean, really, you could be a world-class producer making lots of money doing this for somebody else, but you own your own pirate ship, and I respect it. I love it. All right, tell people how they can find your podcast, YouTube channel, etc.
I have set up my own pirate ship at QuiteFrankly.tv, and on that website you can find all the places that I stream live in evenings at 7 p.m. I'm on the D Live is right there as the centerpiece of the front page on the website, so you can watch on QuiteFrankly.tv every night. But there's also the YouTube, the Periscope, the Twitch, and I'm always looking for new platforms to add to the restream. So there's that. The blog is there. The links to the Discord is there. The link to our subreddit is there, because we build a lot of threads that usually end up into segments for the show with a lot of our great researcher elements of our audience. So QuiteFrankly.tv. It's all I'm plugging these days to keep it simple. Thank you, Sean.
All right. Very good. Thanks for your time today, buddy. We'll talk again soon.
Okay. Be well.
All right. And Jim, Earthman, thank you so much. Are you active on Twitter or anywhere, Jim? How can
No, I'm trying to get my show on, but I'm not quite there yet. So there's nothing I can say to you that'll bring anybody towards me.
Okay.
Outside of the fact that I've really enjoyed this. And I think it's actually a battle between the masks and the unmasked. And I've sort of learned lately that I'm fighting a lie, because I feel this whole virus thing is a lie and a scam. I'm fighting a lie with a lie. So I stand up as much as I can. I walk into every business, every store, every retailer. They have the sign that says mandatory mask. I walk in with no mask. If I can go around a whole store, fill up my cart, I can get to the cashier, and the kid maybe will go, hey, I can't check you out without a mask. And I'll go, well, I'll tell you what, I have a medical condition. I have COPD. If I put on a mask, I'll pass out on your store. You want me to pass out? And they go, oh, no, go on. So whatever I can do to constantly show people that there are folks out there that don't have any fear of not putting on this mask. We have to stand somewhere, and I think that's a good place for me, at least. Yeah. And I want to thank you so much, Sean, for this time. It's been awesome. And Frank, you're incredible too. It's been awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jim. Frank, if you're still there, thank you. And if we lost you, we'll catch you on your show tonight. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate y'all very, very much. Thank you for those who have checked out sgtreport.tv and subscribed. Thank you to my patrons who are keeping us in this fight for truth and real news as well. And guys, for real news, please visit us directly at sgtreport.com, the antidote to corporate propaganda with real news 24/7. God bless.
Thanks, Sean.
Bye-bye.
You know, I keep telling everybody, death is not the worst thing that can happen. You do not want to be a slave in what they're planning. You know, this is a very ugly slavery system. This is not going to be a nice fight. This is not just going to be petitions.